The ayes have it. Call on Government Order of the Day number 2.
Maungaharuru, Tangitu, Hapu Claims Settlement Bill, third reading.
Honourable Dr. Peter Sharples.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Maungaharuru Tangitu Claims Settlement Bill be now read for a third time. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, ko tai mai koutou ki tēnei whare mo te wā whakamutunga. Ko oti te tono mai, te whiriwhiri ngā kōrero me rāti. Nā reira ko tai pai mai koutou ki tēnei rangi, tēnā koutou katoa. Tai no ki ngā mihi ki a rātou kōgaroat, tātou kutukunatu ki te kōpū o te whaia. Nā reira haere ngā mate, waiho rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou, e kaue nei tēnei kaupapa mo te rā nei, tēnā koutou katoa. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the members of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu who have travelled here to join us this important day. I acknowledge those who carried the burden of the wrong suffered by Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu, many who have passed away without seeing this day. Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu are tangata whenua within their takiwā. In their takiwā they have held and continue to hold ahi ka roa. Their takiwā extends from Maungaharuru Range in the west to Tangitu in the east, from Waikari River in the north to Wai o Hinganga and Kete Kete Rau in the south. This is the takiwā of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu, who are commonly known as Ngāti Marangatu he Taua, also known as Ngāti Tū, Ngāti Kuru Mōkihi, Ngai Te Ruruku ki Tāngoio, and Ngai Tauia. Tēnā koutou. In this takiwā, Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu were the recipients of the Crown's actions and inactions that cannot be ignored or excused. In this takiwā, Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu were challenged on their own whenua, and yet, despite this, here they are today to settle with the Crown. Mr. Speaker, the story of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu is therefore not a story about land loss, but one of determined continuity. The settlement for Maungaharuru Tangitu, as encapsulated by this bill, is a result of that determination. Mr. Speaker, prior to the arrival of the Pākehā, Maungaharuru Tangitu lived independently and without the need to leave their rohe to survive. The Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu whakatauaki, ko tō rātou pā kai ngā reke reke, which means their fortified villages were in their heels, eloquently describes that life for the Hapu. Resources available on the coast of Tangitu and available in the inland areas meant that Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu had year-round nourishment without having to leave their tribal boundaries. These rich resources were and continue to be taonga to Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. The Crown's actions completely changed this way of life. Mr. Speaker, we are here today to consider a bill that resolves injustices inflicted by the Crown through its acts and omissions under the privileges of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. From the 1850s, the Crown undertook a process that systematically confiscated nearly all of the Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu ancestral lands. The Waitangi Tribunal recorded in its Mohaka Ki Ahuri report that Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu suffered land loss through pre-1865 Crown purchase, the operation from the 1865 of the Native Land Court, and the 1867 confiscation and later Crown purchasing, mainly conducted from 1910 to 1930. The impact of the land loss, the lack of development opportunities, the fragmentation and multiple ownership of tiny parcels of land, and the lack of access to the remaining land completely undermined the social, economic base of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. The impacts of that land loss can still be seen today. And yet, despite this, Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu are here today to settle with the Crown. For generations, Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu have sought redress for the many breaches of the treaty by the Crown, from Te Taira Te Paia's petition to the Privy Council in London in 1901 over the confiscation of Kaiwaka Block, to the filing of claims with the Waitangi Tribunal in the 1990s. Maungaharuru Tangitu has continued to seek justice for the wrongs it has suffered. In May 2004, the Tribunal presented then Minister of Māori Affairs, the late Honourable Parekura Horomia, with Mohaka ki Ahuriri reports. They reported that the claims of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu were well-founded. They concluded that overall, we have identified serious breaches of the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi by the Crown in the loss of Māori land in our district, in their district. The Waitangi Tribunal recorded in its Mohaka ki Ahuriri report many actions and inactions by the Crown. A few I will mention here. It found that the Crown negotiated unscrupulously to purchase land at Ahuriri and Mohaka in 1851. It described that the Crown was unjustified in its attacks on Pai Māori their followers at Omarunui and Pitane, and its subsequent pursuit of the escapees and destruction of their property. Further, the tribunal reported that the Crown unlawfully confiscated land from Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu and had no basis for depriving the Hapu of ownership of the Tāngoio and Maungaharuru blocks. It did not provide any redress for its exclusion of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu from the title to the Kaiwaka block in 1870, despite protests by the Hapu over many years, and the extensive legal action they successfully took to be included in the title. The Crown also failed to adequately protect the environment in Mohaka ki Ahuriri, including Lake Tūtira, coastal reefs, and other places. Through its failure to adequately protect the environment, the Crown's actions negatively impacted on the resources of Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu treasured and little land they retained. With resources impacted upon, the Crown failed to make adequate efforts to halt Māori depopulation and improve the health and living standards of the Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu to standards equal to that of the Pākehā. These actions by the Crown and others cannot be ignored or excused, and today Maungaharuru Tangitu are here to settle with the Crown. So, Mr. Speaker, today this bill gives effect to the deed of settlement negotiated between the Crown and Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. This bill provides for cultural, financial and commercial redress in compensation for these breaches. It is a way that the Crown can acknowledge that it breached the Treaty of Waitangi. It is a way the Crown can apologise for those breaches and their consequences. This bill looks to make amends for the Crown's past actions and to build a shared future with Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. Mr. Speaker, the legislation before us is much more than a new law. It is a history of a people, and it is the future of a people. It allows Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu and the Crown to acknowledge the past grievances and look forward to a more prosperous future. It's about creating a bright and prosperous future for Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. At this point, just want to pay tribute to Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu. They have suffered heavily at the hands of the Crown, but Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu has a proud history of seeking justice and have not remained passive as these injustices have occurred. They have continued in their kaupapa, resolute and determined. I stand before you to acknowledge the courage and determination you have shown. However, my words can only briefly touch upon the mamai and the pain that Maungaharuru Tangitu has had to endure and carry. This settlement will support the healing of the relationship between Maungaharuru Tangitu Hapu and the Crown. It also serves an important lesson for the Crown to ensure that the devastation inflicted on Maungaharuru, Tangitu, Hapu is never repeated. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the apology, which forms part of the settlement, will also assist with this healing. We acknowledge that as a consequence of the Crown's actions from 1850, Maungaharuru, Tangitu, Hapu has been left bereft in its own whenua, and yet they have come today to settle with the Crown. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
I call the honourable member, Meka Waiteri. Tēnā